I had been coaching Jay Moriarty for 4 years when his whole world changed on a 50-foot monster of a wave that almost killed him. Instead, it made him famous. At just 16, he was by far the youngest surfer to take on Mavericks, a reef break half a mile off the California coast at Half Moon Bay that at the time was recognized as having some of the largest waves anywhere in the world. Some of the most legit surfers in the game had even conceded that when Mavs was on, it was more powerful than the legendary waves at Waimea, on the north shore of Oahu, and that had been considered the all-time mecca of big wave surfing since the late 1950s. So for a kid Jay's age to surf Mavericks was unheard of. To say that Mavericks isn't for kids is doing it an injustice. It's hardly for people. I'd been surfing it for 7 years when Jay had his life-altering moment. I had seen world-renowned big wave riders paddle out and look at the building-sized dark green wall of ocean rushing at them with such incredible force that the water actually gets sucked backward up the face of the wave. Most of them turned around and went home. These were people who'd conquered breaks all over the globe, but they simply wanted nothing to do with Mavs. Jay, though, he wanted to slay dragons. As a coach, I'd worked with dozens and dozens of young people, training them toward the goal of not merely being the best athletes they could be, but more importantly, the best people they could be. Respectful, responsible, passionate human beings. But when Jay, as a scrawny 12-year-old who'd somehow gotten up the nerve to come over to my van at Pleasure Point in Santa Cruz, asked me to teach him about surfing, his enthusiasm for learning what I had to offer totally blew me away. He had a vision of who he wanted to be and the ceaseless determination to make it happen. You could see it in his bright blue eyes and the killer grin that drew everyone to him. If not for his passion and eagerness to do the work, I would never have let the kid anywhere near Mavericks. We'd been working together on basic technique and then contest surfing for 2.5 years before he even brought it up. After that, the real work began, and it was another 1.5 years before I let him paddle out at Half Moon Bay. He hadn't even been surfing Mavs a whole season when the wipeout happened. A photographer caught it on camera. A week later, the photo was in the New York Times. A month after that, it was on the cover of Surfer magazine, and to this day, it's still one of the most famous surf shots ever taken. Like I said, the wave could have killed Jay, but his training had pulled him through, and it really was a beautiful photo, so we threw a party. Boots McGee and his wife Carm decided to host it at their house on the beach flats at Aptos. Everyone was invited. They must have had 75 people jammed into their living room and dining room and another 100 outside. The Santa Cruz surfing community really is a community. Jay belonged to a club called Big Stick Surfing Association, which was a group of longboarders, and I belonged to the Santa Cruz Longboard Union. Both clubs put on non-profit surf contests that gave money to the junior lifeguards and the Santa Cruz Surf Museum. They established scholarship funds for kids in the neighborhood, bought equipment for the lifeguards, and just generally fulfilled a number of community-based support needs. Around here, that's the way it's done. Bob Barber, the photographer who snapped the now-famous shot, was there, along with Jay's mom, Christy, and his girlfriend, Kim. And of course, Jay's surf buddies were partying with him. Shiloh Steinthal, Bobby Brown, Mikey DiGregorio, Neil Moose Matthews, Steve Thomas, and Jed Knoll, whose dad, Greg Knoll, is the grandfather of big wave surfing and a Waimea legend. It was a whole scene. Everybody was all stoked, and everybody was so psyched for Jay. It was party on. Totally a great time. Boots's people were musicians. His dad was a very famous jazz man from back in the 40s, and Carm's people were from the Philippines, so that combo means there was a lot of great music and a lot of great food. There was chicken fixed a couple of different ways, short ribs, and there was a keg or two because we're surfers, you know, and we don't have any money.